Hey guys, we are going to continue reading with our book, The Darkest Hour. We are on chapter 4, and so I'm going to continue to read. We're going to have to read quite a bit to get through it all, so I'm going to read about 2 chapters a day. We'll go from there. So we're on chapter 4. She had killed the guy, and then remember they just now got back, and she's kind of talking with her captain, and he comes to get them, and it says they have a code 1 situation or something like that. Code 1 crisis, and so that's where we're at. When I arrived at headquarters 3 months ago, all bright-eyed and green and ready to take down Adolf Hitler single-handedly, Major Harkin had brought me into the meeting room and launched into our very first briefing. It was right down to business for him, no time to chit-chat, and what was the first thing he drilled me on? Covert Ops levels of crisis. There are 5 levels total, ranging from the lowest infraction, a Class 5, up to the highest, a Class 1. The lower crisis will land you on desk duty for a week. That happened to Tilly a while back. She got slapped by a Class 5 for getting tailed by the Nazis and not shaking them off within a few blocks. Harkin had her rearranging weaponry and washing everyone's sheets for a week. In the grand scheme of things, though, a 4 and a 5 aren't too bad. Now, a Class 2 or 3 are more serious. Let's say the Gestapo dragged you in for an interrogation. Even if you managed to get away, you'd have to retire an entire alias, not to mention getting quarantined in headquarters until Harkin deemed it safe for you to work above ground again. That's what happened to me a month after I arrived, a Class 3. As for a Class 1, Major Harkin hadn't uttered a word about it except to me. If it happens, and it hasn't happened, you might as well hand in your resignation and swim back to Baltimore. I'd shivered then, just as I'm doing now. Filled with dread, I followed Tilly into the meeting room, ducking my head to avoid ancient ceiling beams and taking a seat next to her. Sabine is waiting for us there, lighting a tray of pillar candles that sit atop a monastery of a farm table with trunk-thick legs. A map of Europe hangs on the wall opposite us, dotted with pinheads to mark where our agents are located. Major Harkin strides into the room and ignores the abundance of chairs in front of him, opting to pace in front of the map. I drum my fingers on my knee. The silence is slowly choking me. The question tumbles out of me before I can rein it back. What happened in Reims, sir? Major Harkin gripped the back of his chair, kneading the wood like baguette dough. When he speaks, I hear a tremor weaving through his voice. They're deadly, he says finally. Or they're dead, he says finally. Dead? The shiver multiplies across my arms. He must mean our resistance contacts. We rely on them to act as our eyes and ears around town. Certainly not an easy job, and there's always a risk that one of them might get compromised. I wonder if that's why Laurent was here. Who's dead? Sabine asked. Is it Xavier? Theory? No, I'm not talking about the resistance. Major Harkin bows his head. 2 of our agents are gone, possibly 3. There are sharp intakes of breath around the room. 2 agents dead, maybe 3. This is far beyond a Class 1. Which agents were killed? Tilly whispers. Major Harkin grips the chair harder and the veins of his hands pulse. Margaret and Agnes were fatally shot. Delphine has been arrested. Tilly goes chalk white and Sabine does the same. My mind goes dizzy, spinning like I've ridden the county fair Ferris wheel too many times. The 3 of us have been trained to keep our emotions trapped tightly into our hearts, but all that training has abandoned us now. When Tilly speaks again, she fights to steady her voice. The Nazis took Delphine? There's the smallest flicker of hope in her words. She's alive? For now, yes. That's the news that Laurent has relayed to me, Harkin says. Silence falls over the room again like a death shroud. Under the table, I squeeze Tilly's hand, but her fingers go limp next to mine. Delphine is one of our most seasoned agents. She's stationed in Vichy, the new seat of the French puppet government, but she stops in at headquarters every month to deliver supplies to the OSS that has parachuted into the countryside. My mind flies back to the last time I saw her 2 weeks ago. She had come to deliver our newest parcel, a pile of forged francs for bribe making, a dozen pistol pens, and a sack of potatoes to supplement our rations. But that wasn't all. In her usual Delphine way, she has brought small gifts for us, too. A precious flask of cognac for Harkin, a handkerchief full of strawberries for Sabine and me, and a Barbeus novel for Tilly. Despite their 10-year age gap, they had become fast friends at the boarding school that Tilly attended where Delphine worked as a literature teacher. What happened to Delphine, I say, asking the question burning on my tongue. All of our tongues. Why were the 3 of them even sent to Reims? Because I sent them there, that's why, Harkin barks. His hands slam against the table so hard the wood shudders. My teeth sink into my bottom lip. Should we give you a moment alone, sir? Do I look like I need a moment alone? He snaps. Just like that, his he wiped his face clean and replaced it with his usual mask. I called this meeting for a reason. Now listen here. Our agents were undertaking a special mission in Reims, a mission that Delphine had spearheaded under my direction. This is all highly classified. Understood? The three of us bobbed our heads. Good, Harkins said. About 6 weeks ago, we received a message that the local resistance group in Reims, they believe that the Nazis have a secret operation in works. Once they have kept hush hush. The resistance in Reims has tried for months to mine more information about it, but they keep coming up empty. Aside from the one key piece of intelligence, his gaze flickers towards me. The Nazi code name for the Nazi code name for it was Operation Zerfall. A chill pinches my spine, and I hear Travert's cries echoing in my ears. I'll tell you all about Zerfall. It'll change the course of the war. Zerfall, Sabine says, testing out the word. That's the German word for decay, is it not? Harkin nods. It is. What does the operation entail? Tilly asks. That's the question, isn't it? Harkin says with a drawn-out sigh. Could Zerfall be an airstrike, a U-boat attack? We're working around the clock, Delphine and I, but not getting anywhere. Until Delphine made a discovery. She uncovered a very promising lead in the hotel room of a Nazi lieutenant general. How did she manage that, I asked. Harkin strode around the corner to pour himself some cognac, and at the last second he reached for the wine, likely remembering who had brought him the cognac in the first place. Delphine had befriended a general. She had found a coded telegram that was intended for himself. It took a few more weeks for us to decipher it, but we did so with OSS help. The message said, Zerfall near complete, launch in August. Did the telegram mention anything else, says Sabine. She had scooted to the very edge of her seat, ready to process Harkin's words as soon as he uttered them. Early August is a month and a half away. Our thoughts exactly. Delphine was convinced that she could discover more information if she went to Reims. That's where the Nazi lieutenant general she was friends with had an office. Another sip of wine. She decided to break into it. She did what? Tilly blurted out. Harkin ignores her. I didn't like the idea, but hundreds of thousands of allies' lives could depend on this one lead, and Delphine was sure that she could sneak in and out without anyone noticing. I sent Margaret and Agnes with her, Margaret to keep watch and Agnes to distract the guard if necessary. It was supposed to be a simple black bag job, break in, grab the goods, and go. After it was all over, they would radio Laurent or me. That was 2 days ago. I thought maybe they'd had trouble getting to a safe house, but he trails off and doesn't finish. He doesn't have to. Tilly hiccups and I squeeze her hand again, but I know we're thinking the same thing. Delphine may be alive, but for how long? She could have days, maybe weeks. She might even survive a month if she can stand the torture. But if she breaks before then the Germans will easily put a bullet in her head. I went to tell Tilly that everything will be all right, but I can't even lie that well. 2 agents are dead, and Delphine might soon join them. Nothing has been all right since the war started, though maybe we can change that. I look up at Harkin. We need to go to Reims, sir. I know it's against protocol, but we can't leave Delphine to the Nazis. She knows too much. Lucy's right, Tilly jumps in. I glance at her to find iron in her eyes instead of tears. We could be ready to leave in half an hour. Sabine crosses her arms. If we go to Reims, we will be walking into our own murder. The Germans will have dozens of soldiers guarding Delphine's cell. Then what do you propose, I say, that we sit here and do nothing? That's not what I said. I was merely pointing out that we shouldn't act in haste as you've done tonight with Monsieur Travert. Her gaze cuts me like a knife in my rosary, and she softens when she turns to Tilly. I'm sorry, Matilda, but we must be realistic. I very much respect Delphine, but if the Nazis have captured her, the question must be asked, what if she's already dead? I wish I could yank out Sabine's tongue. We can't assume that. You shouldn't assume that she's alive, Sabine replies. Enough of this, Harkin roars, making all of us jump. Are you two finished flapping your lips yet, or shall I wait? The heat cools from Sabine's eyes, but not by much. My apologies, Major. I'm sorry, I mumbled through clenched teeth. What are you going to do about Delphine? Tilly says at last. Can we reach out to Betty and Virginia? How about Georgina or Germaine? She asks, referring to the other agents of covert ops. We could recall them and have them help us. You could send them a coded radio message, I added, pointing to the Type 3 Mark II transceiver tucked into the corner that we used to contact all our agents as well as the OSS colleagues stationed in London. Only Harkin knows how to use the device, but he's been teaching Sabine how to operate it too. They're all embedded too deeply, Major Harkin mutters. I need them to in the field right now. Betty is making headway in Zurich, and Virginia is too valuable to take out of Brussels. The same with Georgina and Germain. It's taken months to get everybody in place, and I can't get most of them out without jeopardizing their covers. He takes in a long breath and slowly releases it. That leaves it to us to find Delphine. My head snaps to his. My head snaps to his, as does Tilly's and Sabine's. Well, we'll be outnumbered, Sabine starts. But Major Harkin raises his hand to quiet her. Like Blaze said, Delphine knows too much. We can't risk the Germans finding out about the OSS or the covert ops. If she tells them what she knows, it would put everything we've done in danger. It's not only our lives on the line, it's the lives of thousands of Allied soldiers we need to use to cut the Nazis' feet from under them. Delphine won't break, said Tilly. Everyone can break, Major Harkin said darkly. That's the truth. There's the suicide pill, though, says Sabine. She would have used it by now. The Nazis must have found it and disposed of it, Harkin replies. That's what's that. We are going to Reims. We have to determine if she's given up anything during interrogation and if we're now compromised. If we can rescue her, too, all the better. I'll get my things straight away, Tilly says in a rush, but Harkin raises his hand. We're not leaving tonight. There aren't any trains running, and we don't exactly have a car at our disposal. We'll leave in the morning. Once we reach the city, we'll ascertain the situation first. If there's an opening to free Delphine, we'll take it. He glances at Tilly. If not, we'll bring enough powder to blow the jail entirely. Tilly freezes. Sir, it'll be our last option, but if it comes to that, I'll be the one to light the fuse. The thought of taking out one of our own, even if it's a mercy to give her a quick death instead of one the Nazis have in store for her, sickens my stomach. But we join covert ops knowing that what we were signing up for. If we were in Delphine's shoes, we'd choose the bomb too over the Nazis' games. When do we depart? Sabine says. We'll take the noon train to Reims. Make sure you're packed well before then. I sit up straight. He had said we, hadn't he? Or was that a slip of the tongue? Major Harkin seems to sense the question I want to ask him. You won't be coming with us, Blaze. You'll stay here at headquarters to keep watch. That's another punch in the gut. But the decision has been made, especially considering what happened tonight. You may have topped your class, Blaze, but you're not living in a training exercise anymore. My throat grows tight with shame, and I look down at my hands that have failed me tonight with Trevor. I don't reply to Harkin. What would I say to him? One botched mission is forgivable. Perhaps it's even expected. But two, this isn't something my instructors had prepared me for. Tilly clears her throat. Sir, we may want Lucy with us in Reims. It might not be a bad idea to have a lookout. Major Harkin waves her off. The three of you are dismissed. When we don't move fast enough for his liking, he shouts, that's an order. We leapt out of our seats, and when I reach the door, I have to turn back. How am I supposed to stay here at headquarters when Delphine is in prison? Even if I went as a lookout, like Tilly said, I could offer something to their mission. Sir? Major Harkin elbows me out of the room and slams the door on me. Just an inch from my nose. I stumble back, but Tilly is there to catch me. Are you all right? She whispers. I straighten my shirt, hold my chin high. No tears, I tell myself. I'm fine, I say. But both she and I knew that was a lie. Okay, so here is a letter from Theo. Remember, Theo is Lucy's brother that died. And so here's a letter. It says August 3rd, 1942. Dear Luce, it's been nearly a month since you saw me off at the train station, but it feels like ages. How have you been? Miss me yet? Guess where I'm writing you from right now. Right smack dab in the middle of the ocean. We weren't at base for long before they packed us into a big sardine can of a boat. I sure do wish that you and Ruthie could keep me company. We could play rummy and Ruthie could win every hand. Truth be told, though, I am glad the two of you are at home where you'll be safe. Besides, it's beginning to stink like an armpit in our bunk room. I don't think girls would appreciate the smell. We've been at sea for 3 days now. I wouldn't mind switching out bunkmates for my old friend Sir Chive right about now. The bunkmate I do have, Gordon Paul, snores like a foghorn, but he's shared his chocolate rations with me, so I guess we're square. Other than the chocolate, the food isn't much better than pig slop. If the Germans don't kill us first, the baked mutton will. I'm sorry. It would be downright patriotic of Mom if Mom mailed me one of her gallets beer. I don't know. But none of the officers will tell us where we're headed. I'm guessing Abner thinks. Sorry, I'm guessing, and then it has it like blacked out really weird. Abner thinks, and then it's blacked out again. Gordon says, and then it's blacked out again. Can you imagine that? Me sleeping next to a camel? Oh, okay, so they're blacking it out because when you're in the military, if you write people home, they read your mail and stuff, and they make sure, like, if you tell any locations or anything important that they don't want people to, like, maybe find out about from the other side that you're fighting against, they have to, like, mark it out and get rid of it and stuff. So somebody has taken and, like, marked out his information so that she doesn't know. That's what happened. Sergeant Stanton is telling us lights out, so I better make it quick. Could you do me a favor and swing by Ruthie's place, give her a hug for me and a big old kiss on the lips? I'm ragging about the last part, but tell her not to worry. I'll knock off a few Nazis and be home to the two of you before you know it. Love to you both, Theo. Then we're on chapter 5. That night I lie awake on my cot. Hours have passed since the briefing and all the headquarters had gone quiet, but I can't sleep. The eyes of the dead won't give me any peace tonight. Trevor's eyes come to me first, all wide and watery and begging me for mercy. I try to swat the fresh memory of him away, but as soon as I chase it off, I see Margaret and Agnes. I imagine them in rhymes, their eyes grim as the Nazis close in on them. I wonder if they had gone out fighting, emptying their pistols until their chambers clicked hollow, or maybe they just took their suicide pills like every agent is given before a mission, marked L for lethal. One swallow and you're gone. Nobody wants to use an L pill, of course, but sometimes you don't have a choice. I grind my teeth and try not to think of the two of them, and I especially don't want to think about Delphine and what the Nazis might be doing to her right now. So I force myself to focus on something else, anything else, and that's when my thoughts turn to Theo, like they always do when the sleep eludes me. Sometimes I think I'm forgetting his face, so I try to remember every detail. Theo often had his glint in his eyes like he was thinking about a joke that our priest would rap his knuckles for repeating. He also had a bump in his nose and long hair that hung past his earlobes, which Papa hated. When Theo did finally cut his hair, it wasn't for our father's benefit, but to join the service. The last time I saw him alive, he was sporting this freshly clipped hair along with a new army uniform that hung past his wrists. He had already spent weeks in basic training and had come home for 3 days before he had to ship out. Our family went to the train station to see him off. The memory of that day had stayed crisp in my mind like a newly developed photograph. Papa was hungover like always, and we reached the train station in time for the conductor to cup his hands to his mouth and shout, "Last call, all aboard." Papa shuffled forward to give the first goodbye, a rough pat on Theo's back, and a quick bon courage with his wine-stained breath. Mom went next. She started weeping into her handkerchief while Theo gave her a peck and told her that he would miss her crepes. Ruthie hadn't come to the station. She and Theo said their goodbyes late the night before, but I saw him scanning the crowd for her anyways, hoping. There was no more time to search for Ruthie, though, not with the conductor motioning toward us. Theo threaded toward the nearest car, and I sprang after him, leaving our parents behind in the busy throng. "You'll write to me, won't you?" Theo said, smacking his gum and tucking his knuckles under my chin. "Of course I will. I'll be back before you know it." Then he mused my hair because he saw the tears brimming in my eyes. "Don't worry that little head of yours either. I don't forget about California." I blinked at him. "What do you think I plan on doing with the cash Uncle Sam is going to give me?" he said. So he hadn't given up on our plan. "But what about Ruthie?" "Shh," he said, and jutted a thumb into our parents' direction. They didn't know that he had a girlfriend, much less a Jewish one that Papa would never approve of. Not that Theo cared much about pleasing our father these days. He signed up for the war without mentioning things to our parents. "Ruthie will come with us too." "Oh, don't make that face. You like her. Admit it." It was true. I did like Ruth Green. I was all prepared to hate her for stealing away Theo's heart, but she won me over when she made him study for his test and single-handedly brought his C average up to a B+. She was nothing like Theo at all. She was serious while he was all jokes. She kept the books at her mother's sewing shop, and Theo couldn't save a nickel if he wanted to. But somehow they fell for each other, and they were glued at the hip for almost a year. "When I get back," he said, "we'll all hop on a bus, the three of us. Just you wait. You promise?" He grinned. When have I ever broke a promise to you?" The train started to move, and Theo gave me a fierce hug before he jumped onto the car. A smooth move straight out of the pictures. As the engine chugged and ushered him away from me, he winked and called out, "Say a Hail Mary for me every night, won't you, Luce?" I shouted back to him that I would, and I did him one better. When I woke up every morning, I would say a prayer for him. When I folded dough after school, I whispered another. Then late at night, when I tried to ignore Papa's drunken shouts, I said 2 Hail Marys for Theo, just as I'd promised. Until the telegram came. I remember that day, too. January 14th, 1943. Mom collapsed onto the kitchen floor weeping. Papa left the house and didn't return for 2 days. All the while, the telegram sat on our dining table like a shard of glass, untouched. A Western Union emblem was printed on top, followed by the lines, "Dear Mr. and Mrs. Blaze, the Secretary of War expresses his deepest regrets." After their funeral, I dreamed of Theo for weeks. It was always the same, of him lying on a sandy battlefield in North Africa with his mouth blue and his beloved uniform shredded. It was his eyes, though, open and lifeless, that would make me wake up screaming. Mom would rush into the room while Papa would yell at me to shut my mouth. Months had passed before the nightmares went away, but tonight it comes back to haunt me. This time, though, instead of Mom waking me up, it was Sabine. "What are you doing in here?" I say groggily. Sabine rarely sets foot in my room, which means she isn't here for chit-chat. She's here for another reason. "Is there an air raid?" "No," she says plainly. I breathe out a sigh of relief. Ever since the Americans formally entered the war, the air raids have become a regular part of life. And while it might be comforting to know that the boys are so close, they don't always hit their marks. "Then what do you want?" "You were having a bad dream," she says, holding up a candle, dripping wax onto my covers. Her tone is unreadable. I don't know if she's chiding me or comforting me. Knowing her, it's probably the former. I clutch the covers tight over me, a tattered shield against her words. "Is having a bad dream a crime these days?" "No, but you were thrashing about loud enough to alert every soldier in a 2-block radius. Major Harkin sent me to wake you." "Well, I'm up now. You can give Harkin my apologies." "Tell him yourself. He wants to see us in the meeting room. Matilda's already there." "Why?" "I'm not going to Rhymes." I expected Sabine to smile at that, but her mouth tightens into the shape of a prune. "Those were his orders. Get dressed." Before she leaves, though, she lights the candle on my nightstand, and I notice she's dressed notice she's dressed in her alias. Fafine is a Swedish sugar dressmaker who whimpers at the sight of a gun, and her wardrobe matches her purity. A strawberry blonde wig that's braided down the back, and a pale yellow dress that sings innocence. Although I'm sure Sabine has at least 2 daggers strapped to her thigh and a pin that doubles as a pistol in her pocket. I should thank her for lighting the candle for me, but my gratitude sticks in my throat. Seeing her ready to go to Rhymes reminds me of how disappointed Major Harkin is again. "Don't keep the Major waiting," Sabine said, and then she's gone. I drag myself out of bed and don't bother changing out of the clothes I'd fallen asleep in last night, but I do scrub my face clean with a bowl of water on my dresser. Running water has turned into something of a joke in Paris, so we fill up our cups and pitchers whenever the pipes are working. When I reach the meeting room, I find Tilly and Major Harkin sitting at the table while Sabine slices a loaf of bread and disperses a knob of cheese. I find someone else with them too, Laurent. "Ah, Lucy." He gives me a huge hug beneath the doorframe. His arms are warm and strong, and I feel like I'm embracing a bear. I wish I could stay, but I'm afraid I must hurry back to the club. I step back, puzzled at what could cause him to return to headquarters so soon. Laurent usually visits once every 2 weeks to bring us information that he's gleaned from the Nazis who visit the jazz club that he owns. The soldiers who frequent Le Grand Duc have no clue that Laurent speaks fluent German. They simply see what they want to see, a black Frenchman with a limp from the Great War, and that's how Laurent has mined his precious intelligence for us. Like where the Nazis are manufacturing ammunition, and any news about the Pacific threat of the war. Much as I enjoy Laurent's drop-ins, however, 2 visits from him within 2 consecutive days can mean only one thing. He must have brought urgent news to Harkin. I wonder if there's been any update about Delphine, but he's clearly eager to leave. Before Laurent departs, he whispers, "Safe travels to you while you're gone." "Oh, I'm not going to Rhymes. I'll be staying here." "In Paris? But aren't you going to Cherbourg?" "Cherbourg? Why would I go to the northern French coast?" Laurent doesn't elaborate any further, though, simply waves goodbye and disappears down the hall. "Join us at the table, Blaze," Major Harkin said sourly, and I take the chair next to Tilly. She has donned her Laverne alias, complete with a pair of horn-rimmed glasses. Despite the night she has had, she's given me a tired smile. "Did Laurent bring news about Delphine, sir?" I ask. "No, he did not," replies Harkin. He leaves his chair to pace in front of us, and I notice he hasn't changed since last night either. "I'll get right to the point. There's been a change of plans. Agent Chevalier, you'll no longer be traveling to Rhymes." From the look of Sabine's face, he might as well have slapped her. "I beg your pardon? You'll be heading to Cherbourg." Major Harkin looks over at me. "And you, Blaze, you'll be going with her." I'm not sure that I heard him right. "Me?" "You. Yes, you. Who else is named Blaze in this room?" "You can't be serious, sir," says Sabine, her face twisting from shock to suspicion. Meanwhile, my own face is stuck in plain shock. I wonder if Major Harkin is pulling my leg, but he isn't the sort to do any leg pulling. "What about Delphine?" Sabine says. "Yesterday you were determined to rescue her, but today you've changed your mind?" "Far from it, and do watch your tone. Agent Fairbanks and I will continue to Rhymes, and as we discussed last night," Harkin replies, "but I'm sending the 2 of you on a different mission." Sabine's eyes filled with daggers. "May I speak with you in private?" "No, you may not." Then might I point out that Lucy is a trainee?" I'm well aware of this, yes. With due respect, she's simply not ready. Careful, Agent Chevalier, or I'll bump you back to trainee status, too. That makes Sabine stop talking. I feel a smile bubble up inside, but Harkin turns his furrowed brow towards me. Don't look so smug, Blaze, he says. You're not ready for another mission by a long shot, but here we are, and you're alive, and you're what I have to work with. That's why I'm sending you out. Is that understood? His words carve a hole in my chest, but somehow I find a way to nod. Why do you need us in Cherbourg? Laurent gave me new intelligence that requires our presence. This is the type of mission that will require two of us, and since I'm running low on agents, I'm sending you along. He's criticizing me yet again, but I'll take his sharp words over desk duty. What do you need us to do? In reply, Harkin reaches into his pocket and draws out two handkerchiefs. One side of them is printed with pretty rose patterns, and the other side shows a map. This is a common trick we use in covert ops, disguising maps that lead to safe houses and key locations. It is folded and worn a certain way, say tied around your neck, that Nazis should never notice it. The map on this particular handkerchief shows a northern region of France called Normandy, specifically a sliver of the coast. The city of Cherbourg is charted out clearly, from its massive seaports to its neighboring villages, and at the very bottom of the handkerchief, I see two lines of coded text, an address perhaps. Major Harkins taps a finger on the code. The first line of the text is an address to a safe house in Cherbourg. You'll rendezvous with a branch of the resistance there. They'll take you to speak with a man called Alexander Dorner. Dorner, that's certainly not a French name. You want us to meet with a German? He's Austrian by birth. At least he claims to be, Major Harkin corrects me. That doesn't remove the bitter taste in my mouth. Hitler himself is Austrian-born after all. This man also claims to be a Nazi officer with classified information for the Allies. Major Harkins goes on. He escaped from Germany to Belgium and then made his way to France, where he made contact with the resistance. Tilly shakes her head. That's quite the story. Nevertheless, it's a story we need to check out, because Dorner supposedly has information about Operation Zerfall. He's willing to trade the information for safe passage to England, a new life in Allied territory. And how do we know we can trust this man? Sabine asked coolly. We can't trust him at this point, and that's why I need you and Blaze to interrogate him. If Operation Zerfall isn't as important as we think it might be, we have to follow every lead. He knocks his knuckles against the map right over Cherbourg. Find him, question him. If his intelligence is worth considering, take him to the village of Otterville 2 days from now at 0400 hours at these coordinates. He moves his knuckles towards the second line of the coded text. The Brits will send a submarine to retrieve him just north of the village. One of their agents is a special operations executive who will meet you on the shore and take Dorner to the sub via rowboat. After that, you can return to Paris. I jot down Major Harkin's commands in my mind. What if they think Dorner is lying? Harkin's eyebrows arched. Do you really need me to answer that? Ah, understood, sir. If it does indeed come to that, however, Sabine will do the job. That's an order. She's never had any trouble taking out a target, and we can't botch this task. I dip an inch lower in my seat. He doesn't have to say my name to get the message across that he's talking about me. Sabine places her palms on the table, then sends me in alone. Then send me in alone, sir. No, and that's an order too, replies Harkin, because if this Dorner is telling the truth, then it'll be our highest priority to get him across the channel. Why not dispose of him after he tells us what we need to know, says Sabine. She gives a little smirk. He's a Nazi. He doesn't deserve to live this new life that he seeks in England. For once, I heartily agree with her, but Harkin blows out a long sigh. Be that as it may, Dorner is more useful to us alive than dead. He'll have details concerning the Nazis' plans and inner workings, which he can share with the SOE. They'll be able to use those details to our advantage. He flicks a rare look of annoyance Sabine's way. Besides, we're not like Nazis. We're not cold-blooded murderers. Sabine isn't fazed in the least that he's compared her suggestions to murder. Still, I can get to Dorner on my own. I don't need assistance. Getting to the drop-off point won't be a cakewalk, not even for you. There'll be patrols and barbed wire all over the coast, especially near the major seaport like Cherbourg. That is why you'll need 2 agents to do the job. He pauses and his voice goes gruff. If one of you goes down, the other will have to finish. Before Sabine can offer another word, he slides the handkerchief over to me. Don't lose this. I won't. I fold the handkerchief carefully and hold it in my hand like it's a crown jewel of England. Thank you for... That's it for our briefing. Harkin cuts me off. Gather your things and brush up on your aliases. And Miss Blaze, you better muster some makeup to take with you, too. Pardon, sir? I say, blinking. I hardly ever wear makeup here in Paris. It wouldn't be very fitting for Sister Marchand, and it wouldn't look quite right on Bretta, the schoolgirl alias that I've been forced to retire a few months ago, which means... Major Harkin snorts. Lipstick. Whatever else you need to look the part. You'll be traveling under your Florent Dupree alias. I've never used Fleuron outside of training exercises. I can't really hold a tone you I can't really hold a tone or, Dinah Shore, you can sing well enough. He must notice how I've gone pale because he adds, it's either Florent or I'll leave you here at headquarters. Your choice. I bite back in protest. I'll be ready as soon as possible. Bring the guitar, too. My stomach flutters because he's not talking about the guitar exactly. He's talking about the guitar case, the one specially made for us by the Research and Development Branch. From outside, it looks like an ordinary black case, and it looks even more ordinary on the inside with its plain velvet lining. But under the lining, you'll find a hidden compartment that's the perfect size for hiding pistols or tear gas canisters or plump bags of Aunt Jemima, another OSS invention that looks and cooks like regular flour, but once you add a detonator and an accelerant, you'll find a powerful bomb on your hands. Harkin nods at the three of us. You're all dismissed. We'll convene again after you've packed. Tilly claps me on the back to congratulate me before she darts to our room, but Sabine slinks out without looking at me. She's not happy at all that Harkin has paired us together, but happy or not, we're stuck with each other. These are the orders. And I, for one, don't plan on disappointing him. I go to the weaponry first, which is tucked inside a space that used to be a cellar. I can almost pick up the sharp smell of onions, but there certainly aren't onions in front of me. Instead, on the shelf upon shelf, there are hundreds of items that would make any Gestapo officer salivate. Lightweight machine guns, bombs in shapes of coal, candlesticks that explode when you burn them halfway down. I take a pistol attached with a silencer and grab a razor-thin dagger that will stick into the sheath of my inner thigh. The pin comes next. It takes two that double. I take two that double as a single shot pistol before I reach for a couple that hide thin cylinders of tear gas. I make sure to handle those very carefully. One slip up and I'll be coughing up smoke. The wardrobe closet is the next destination. The entire space is stocked with clothes, purses, shoes, and all sorts of accoutrements necessary to disguise ourselves on the streets of Paris. Everything looks perfectly normal at first glance, but most of the clothes conceal a deadly secret. Our blouses and skirts are sewn with hidden pockets to stow stacks of bribe money, or a handy knife to jab into an unsuspected Nazi. I pack quickly and dress even quicker. A cream silk blouse, a soft green skirt that's full enough to hide the dagger. I strap to my thigh, and a simple pair of black shoes that contain a little surprise. 2-inch daggers in each heel. I imagine thrusting one into the neck of Lieutenant Schuster. He'd never see it coming. At the last minute, I tuck a headquarters key and an alternate stack of ID paperwork into the secret blouse pocket. Hopefully, I won't have to use those papers. With my valet packed, I'm left with one single task, becoming Florent. When I return to my room, I see Tilly by my bed, pacing like Major Harkin. She's ready to go, and she motions for me to sit on her cot. I'll help you with the wig, she offers. I need to keep my hands busy or I'm going to go mad. Delphine is stronger than all of us combined. You and Major Harkin might be able to get her out by tomorrow night. We'll see. She pins back my hair, and there's no way she can hide her trembling fingers from me. You're going to find her. I just know it. Besides, Harkin might be a pain in our backsides, but you won't find a better shot in France. Are you saying that Harkin is a better shot than I am? She tries to grin for my sake, but I already heard the flutter in her voice. It's her tell whenever she gets nervous. She must sense this because soon she's schooling her features like we've been taught to do. We better hurry or Major Harkin will start shouting. I want to assure Tilly again, but the truth is that I'm scared for her. 2 lone agents against an entire city of Nazis, those chances aren't good, and neither are mine when I think about it. So I focus on my alias instead, sweeping rouge over my cheekbones and painting my lips red, though I make sure to use a light hand because makeup is in short supply across France, and it would look suspicious to wear too much of it. In any case, we get most of our cosmetics from Laurent's daughter, Christine, who's a saleswoman with Isabelle Lincrane, and sneaks us samples whenever she can spare them. If we need more, we purchase them off the black market, which has grown by the month since the Nazi takeover. When Tilly and I are finished, a glance in the mirror reveals a girl I didn't recognize. Long golden waves cascade over my shoulders, framing a powdered face that looks far older than I really am. Since Laurent is a 20-year-old singer who earns her living in Paris, singing in nightclubs. She's a sort of girl who puts on heels every morning and wears lace nightgowns to bed, who has had I don't know what this is. Well, I have never had any. Theo was sure to scare off anyone who gave me a second look. A couple years back, Philip Franks tried to steal a kiss from me in the cafeteria after school. I think I was about to let him until Theo spotted us and said real loud, "What exactly do you think you're doing, Frankie?" Philip ran off and I punched Theo in the arm for being so insufferably embarrassing. But he mused my hair like he always does. Someone's got to watch out for you, kid, he said. I wished I could have returned the favor when he went off to North Africa. Blaze, good God, how long does it take to apply some simple rouge? I hear Major Harkins swearing in the corridor. I tie the handkerchief paper around my neck and grab my bags, and Tilly and I hurry out to meet him. There you are, Major Harkins says when we reach him. He's standing next to the ladder, arms tightly crossed. Do you have everything with you? Yes, sir. Even the L pill? It's a grim question, but one that needs to be asked. I pat the small silk pocket on my blouse. Right here. Good. I'm sending you and Agent Chevalier out to the train station first. We're ready, sir. He looks doubtful at that, but that he doesn't voice it. But I'm thankful he doesn't voice it. Quickly, he briefs Sabine and me on the code phrases we'll use on the resistance and the British Special Operations Executive to signal we're friendlies. Then he jerks his thumb towards the hatch. Get moving. I'll see you two back here in a few days. Before we go, Tilly shakes Sabine's hand before she tackles me in a tight hug. I hug her back, wishing we had more time for a proper goodbye, and wishing that she were the one coming with me and not coming with me to Cherbourg. Bon voyage, Tilly whispers to me. Try not to smother Sabine in her sleep if you can. We may need to keep her around here. Despite everything that has happened in the last 12 hours, I grin. Go find Delphine and bring her home. Major Harkins shakes my hand and he attempts to shake Sabine's too, but she's already ascended the ladder. Apparently she's still cross with him for making me tag along with her. I climb up after her, and once I reach the top, I try to wave to Tilly, but I find Major Harkins staring at me. I wonder if he'll tell me good luck or offer a scrap of encouragement, but maybe he'll even give me an enthusiastic, get those jerseys for me, girls. Instead, Major Harkins looks at me with tired eyes and says, be careful, watch your back, and don't get killed if you can help it. With that ringing endorsement hanging between us, he disappears into the darkness. So that is chapters 4 and 5. So we need to read about 2 chapters every day to get through the book before the end of the year. So we read our 2 for today. So I hope you liked it, and I will see you guys later. Have a good night.